Now, the moving over to the SAFE Act, we can talk about that for just a few moments. I know that you've come out unequivocally saying that the SAFE Act was a bad law.
Yeah.
Proponents of the law say that, look, in concept, it's good. We don't want criminals or mentally unstable people to have access to guns. Opponents will say that it's not well written. I imagine that's where you fall. Tell us your opinion on that.
Well, let's take a look at the process first before we even get to the substance. So here we have this horrible national tragedy in Connecticut where these young, beautiful children are slaughtered. And what do we have in response here in New York? A ram down of a piece of legislation so that people can claim that New York is the first state to pass gun control in the wake of the tragedy of Connecticut. No public debate. You know, the 3-day waiting period for the passage was waived through a message of necessity. So those that wanted to have a voice in this debate were foreclosed. And that's not democracy. I mean, and that is in part the outrage about the SAFE Act, that not even the ability to be heard on something that is critically important to a lot of values and that people hold in the state of New York, they were foreclosed from even participating. And then we have the legislation itself, which made law enforcement officials violating state law because of the magazine clip. It shows you that there was absolutely no thought process put into the legislation. And it tries to draw some sort of moral equivalency between people with legal gun ownership and the horrible tragedy in Newtown. It just was a bad, bad piece of legislation. And it did nothing to really get to the underlying issue of mental health. Clearly that individual in Connecticut that committed these horrible crimes was suffering from mental health issues. Did the SAFE Act do anything to really address this underlying crisis in mental health that we have here in New York and around the country? No, it didn't. So it was a failure to deal with a real critical issue in mental health. Process-wise, it was deplorable that it was passed on a message of necessity for purely political reasons. There's no, it's clear why the people of New York State are really, really upset about the passage of the SAFE Act.
Now let me ask you, what role, if any, could the Attorney General play? Let's assume you're elected Attorney General.
Yeah.
What role could you play in either repealing or modifying that SAFE Act?
Well, certainly you could be an advocate for modifying it, and, but the Attorney General does have a role in enforcing the laws of the state of New York. You take a sworn oath to do that. You're not a lawmaker, you enforce the laws of the state of New York, and I take that seriously. But I certainly would work with local district attorneys to lessen the burden, to make sure that issues are prioritized as far as where enforcement resources are put. Let me just say that I think the issues of corruption in Albany, the issues of domestic violence that we just talked about, are far more important than the issues around the SAFE Act.